I don't know about you, but texture is so important to me. When I'm making a project, I want it to feel satisfying. Now, I could talk for a very long time about different yarn textures I have in the past, and I will do again, but today, let's lock firmly in on what stitches we make and what a big difference they create when it comes to how the blanket feels and how it therefore works as a blanket. A massive way to create a brilliant sensory experience from a blanket is to use some textured stitches. And what do I mean by that? I mean ones that give different shapes and a different feel. They will perhaps make the blanket denser in certain places or feel heavier overall because of how much weight of yarn is going into one particular place. It is such a cool way to make a blanket that feels so much more satisfying to have wrapped around you or in your hands. And these are my absolute favourite stitches when it comes to texture. I want to talk to you about puff stitches first because I think puff stitches look a bit intimidating to some people, but actually they're relatively easy to make. You're just looping the yarn over a couple of times and then pulling through. And you can use them in so many different ways. My preference for puff stitches is probably when they're worked into fun designs like flowers, so like individual pieces, but they can totally add something really cool to a blanket, whether they're worked in rows or in rounds, or even incorporated into waves as I've done recently. Puff stitches are a great way to give a bit of a more dense feel to your stitch, but they're still quite soft and squishy as well. And then there's ribbing. Now, ribbing is a way of making raised ridges and troughs within your crochet. Now, traditionally, ribbing is very much a knitting thing, but I'm not a knitter. Therefore, if I want to create ribbing, I have to do it the crochet way. Apparently slightly slower than the knitted way, but still good. And there are several different ways that you can make ribbing as well. Personally, the shorter, more compact ribbing I find the most satisfying, and it has this lovely sort of stretch that it gives the material, which makes a brilliant finish for things like cuffs, but also can make an absolutely lovely blanket too. And because it's got those ridges to the fabric, when you're holding it, it also makes it really nice and dense and warm as well. Feather stitches, because they have yarn piled on top of them, are a great way of making texture too. These extra sort of loops as you crochet form something that feels nice and satisfyingly thick and has a really pretty, quite delicate finish to it as well. I've got to talk about basket weave. I talk about it quite a lot at the moment. I am making a big project with these squares. It's a lot of fun. It's taking some time. Basket weave is one of those things that looks and feels slightly intimidating to some people when you begin it, but actually it's a lovely repetitive stitch that once you've got into the flow of working into the back and the front, it's actually pretty straightforward and you can work it without having to concentrate too hard, and it is so pretty and it feels so nice when you're holding it as well. So I'm very excited about that one being finished, and I highly recommend having a go with it if you haven't already. Bobble stitches are such a fun way to create a variety of different textures. So not only can you make individual bobbles turn into shapes and patterns and even use it to like write someone's name on their blanket, but you can make them in random places on the blanket. You can use them in rows. You can use them for almost every stitch to get a really thick, very chunky blanket, or you can make them in circles to produce really pretty patterns. These work great in granny squares just as well as they do worked in rows. A really nice one for texture, particularly if you use a relatively soft yarn, like one with a bit of merino wool in it. I'm going to drop bullion stitches in here too because they create a lovely texture. Now you do have to use a latch hook for this one, but it is a lovely finish and it is one that raises up the blanket in a way that looks slightly different to other crochet stitches. So it's not just a nice, fun, different texture, but it's also one that may stand out from your other projects a little bit more as well, which is always cool. I have a love-hate relationship with waffle stitch. I don't know if it's just me. Tell me in the comments section, but it takes such a long time to waffle stitch for me. It has the most delightful texture and finish. I totally love it. One day I dream of being a person who can commit properly to my waffle stitch blanket that I started probably 6 years ago, and occasionally pick up and do a row and then walk away slowly disappointed in myself. It's a lot. Tell me how you feel about waffle stitches. Personally, for me, the texture is amazing, but I think you have to be someone with more focus than I do to complete a waffle stitch project, but I'd love to hear if you've managed it. Bean stitches are lovely. They create a very dense finish because the beans are these individual little lumps within the fabric. However, you can make big ones or small ones. You can use them consistently throughout the rows. You can make them as granny squares. You can use them interspersed with other flatter stitches to give a more ridged effect than this overall sort of lumpy, sounds like it's bad, but lumpy finish, but incredibly tactile. If you like crochet that you can rub between your hands and get sort of a bit of satisfying friction from, bean stitch is a good one to try. And in a slightly different vein, there are these 3D ways of creating different shapes. Now it comes across almost like a separate piece, but this is actually made within the crochet pattern. It gives a three-dimensional look. These sunflowers and snowflakes, totally beautiful and give a really different feel and finish and texture to your blanket, particularly if you like that sort of feeling of something a little bit separate. They're a lovely one to have a go with. And finally for this video, let's chat about star stitches. There are so many different varieties of these. They also come under a few different names. There's one of the star stitches that I have seen referred to as a daisy stitch. Personally, I don't think it looks like a daisy, but each to their own. These are lovely for making an impact blanket that feels so nice. It gives a really good variation to the texture and a really beautiful finish. Some star stitches are easier than others, but these particular ones I all think hang around the early intermediate level. So if you've tried a few crochet projects, you're feeling confident, or if you are advanced, super expert, awesome crocheter, then highly, yeah, I totally recommend giving star stitches a try. A really good fun one, a little bit thinky for some of them, but not too bad, and the texture and finish is totally lovely. But what about you? What is your favourite way to create texture in your crochet blanket? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I'd love to hear which ones you like the very best. Let's compare notes, and happy crocheting.